Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a really fascinating and honestly deeply concerning economic mystery. We're going to look at why some of the smartest, most fiercely data-driven companies in the world are making entirely rational, calculated choices that could, mathematically speaking, lead to their own economic disruption. We're looking into the research behind what's being called the AI Layoff Trap. It's this wild scenario where the frantic race for automation might actually be eroding the very consumer demand that these businesses need to survive.
Okay, let's dive into this and map out our journey for today. We'll kick things off with the AI layoff shock, then look at how workers are also consumers, the mechanics behind the automation doom loop, the corporate prisoner's dilemma driving all of this, why UBI falls short as a fix, and wrap up with the proposed automation tax solution. All right, Section 1, the AI layoff shock, looking at the sheer scale of current tech job losses. To really wrap our heads around the theory here, we've got to ground ourselves in the stark reality of what is happening right this very minute. The tech industry is going through a massive wave of job losses. And you have to realize, this isn't just a minor market hiccup. The cuts are absolutely massive. We're talking over 30,000 layoffs at Amazon alone, roughly 15,000 at Microsoft, 12,000 at Oracle, and 8,000 at Meta. And it doesn't stop at big tech either. We're seeing these sweeping cuts across enterprise tech, SaaS platforms like Salesforce and Workday, even gaming companies like Epic Games. These aren't isolated little incidents. They represent a massive industry-wide trend toward automation-driven restructuring.
And the projections looking forward are just staggering. Researchers and analysts are pointing to an estimated 120,000 workers laid off in 2026 alone. Let's put that into perspective. That equates to nearly 1,000 people losing their jobs every single day. So what exactly is driving this rapid purge? And more importantly, what does it mean for the broader economy?
That brings us to Section 2. Workers are also consumers and the dual role of the human workforce.
To figure out what's driving this, we turn to a mathematical model developed by economists from UPenn and Boston University. They identified a foundational, structural risk in AI-driven economies, and it really hinges on how we define a worker. The core premise here is that workers are not just lines on a payroll spreadsheet. They aren't just a business expense to be minimized. Workers are also consumers. They literally are the market. If a worker gets replaced by AI, well, they instantly stop buying morning coffees. They cancel their software subscriptions. They delay buying a new car. When you cut jobs faster than the overall economy can create new ones or absorb those workers, you are inadvertently eroding your own consumer base.
And this brilliantly illustrates the point. Think about the famous eat-your-own-dog food culture over at Microsoft. Teams building Word or Excel actively use those exact same products in their daily work, which helped refine them and make them the market leaders they are today. Right now, the people working in AI and tech are the absolute power users of AI tools. If you replace them too quickly, you're not just shedding labor costs, you are eliminating the very people who buy, use, and perfect your products.
Moving to Section 3, the automation doom loop. This is what happens when falling demand triggers even more automation.
So this brings us to a frankly terrifying systemic paradox. When that specific consumer base starts disappearing, the economy risks falling into what researchers describe as an economic spiral. Let's walk through the mechanics of this loop. Step 1, companies automate tasks and fire workers to boost efficiency. Step 2, those laid-off workers naturally stop spending money. Step 3, because spending drops off, overall market demand falls across the board. Step 4, faced with falling demand and lower revenues, companies panic and try to cut costs even further, which, you guessed it, leads right back to Step 1, more automation. It is a vicious feedback loop with literally no natural stopping point.
And the irony here is just wild, especially when you look at where the money is going. Firms are actively cutting human payroll precisely so they can afford the massive, eye-watering computing power required to run these AI engines in the first place. They're slashing the salaries of their own consumers to fund automation, even when, in a lot of cases, these current AI tools aren't quite delivering the expected return on investment yet. It's kind of like cutting off your leg to lose weight. Let's look at Section 4. A corporate prisoner's dilemma, the mathematical trap of rational decisions. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it frames the issue objectively. The corporate push for AI isn't necessarily rooted in some cartoonish evil greed. According to the UPenn and Boston University model, this is actually highly rational behavior, but it inadvertently triggers what's called a demand externality. Let me explain. When one company cuts jobs, it immediately becomes more profitable, but that company doesn't instantly feel the pain of that specific laid-off worker not buying goods. The negative impact of that lost demand gets spread super thinly across all firms, so companies ignore the broader economic damage because they're only seeing their own immediate savings.
And because of this externality, we find ourselves in a classic prisoner's dilemma. Think about it. Even if every CEO on Earth realizes that mass automation will eventually destroy the consumer economy, no single firm has any incentive to be the first to stop. If you pump the brakes on automating, your competitor is just going to keep going, lower their prices, and completely put you out of business. So firms are practically forced to continually over-automate way beyond what is collectively healthy for the market.
This comparison really hits the nail on the head. From the view of an individual firm, cutting jobs equals higher efficiency and higher profits. It's a clear win. But from the macro economy view, if everyone cuts jobs, it equals zero overall market demand. It's a total catastrophic loss. We are in a situation where individual success strategies practically guarantee systemic collapse.
Which brings us to Section 5, why UBI falls short, the failure of traditional policy interventions.
So if our economic system doesn't have a built-in mechanism to self-correct this demand collapse, what do we actually do? We have to look at proposed interventions and understand why standard safety nets just might not be enough to fix a structural risk this deep. A lot of folks point to universal basic income, or UBI, but critics, and the economic model itself, suggest UBI simply lacks sufficient sustainable funding. I mean, governments can't just generate money out of thin air without a solid tax base. And wealth taxes on billionaires, they don't magically recreate a sustainable, robust consumer market. The core issue here is the structural lack of high-paying jobs. Even the classic advice of upskilling fails if entire categories of jobs just vanish. We're already seeing the cracks. For instance, the H-1B visa program is essentially being put on ice right now as tech companies freeze hiring for roles that are actively being automated away.
And let's just remind ourselves of the stakes for a second. Research shows that up to 80% of U.S. jobs have some level of exposure to AI automation risks. Entire teams of human workers are actively being replaced by software agents as we speak. The math in this economic model isn't just theoretical anymore. We're watching it play out in reality. Section 6. The Automation Tax Solution, forcing accountability into the system.
So the crucial point is, if traditional safety nets aren't going to work, how do you force accountability into a totally broken loop? Well, economists have proposed a theoretical remedy that targets the absolute root cause, the demand externality itself. Under this model, which is known as a Pigouvian automation tax, you mathematically force companies to weigh the true cost of their actions. How it works is, for every task a firm automates by replacing a human, they're charged a specific tax. This literally forces the individual firm to financially account for the lost macroeconomic demand they just created. Now, no major government is seriously implementing this just yet, but without some kind of intervention like this, the mathematical model predicts the over-automation is just going to continue.
And this leads us to the ultimate, inevitable endpoint of the unchecked automation loop. It is a chilling question that we all have to face sooner or later. If AI allows us to reach a state of boundless, perfect productivity where we're creating incredible products at lightning speed, but we've completely eliminated the salaries of the humans who actually make up the market, who buys the products?
I want to leave you with this incredibly provocative thought from the researchers. We are looking at a potential self-reinforcing economic collapse not due to bad actors, but due to rational decisions. The fragility of our economic future isn't necessarily resting in the hands of some malicious villains, but rather in spreadsheets that are optimizing for immediate efficiency, while completely ignoring the long-term survival of the market itself. It's an absolutely fascinating paradox, and it's one we definitely need to keep a close eye on as this AI revolution continues to unfold. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll see you all next time.